Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Caddy Corner. I want to start things off by just apologizing for missing after hours this week. That was not in the plans, but we do have something very special for you. The reason that we didn't get an episode of After Hours out this week is because we were working on this another project that you're about to watch right now, and that is Madison White came on the podcast as a guest. She's a teacher at the high school that we used to go to, and definitely just has an interesting story. She talks a little bit about what it means to be a teacher and why she kind of chose that career path. Before we get started, please be sure to rate and review the show if you haven't already. This type of show comes out every Friday, definitely more of our informative show. We also have another kind of show that comes out every Wednesday, which is called Caddy Corner After Hours, which is more laid back, where we talk about just whatever we want to for however long we want to. So please be sure to check that out if you're into that sort of thing. And let's get right into it. So the very first question that I have for you is just to share a little bit about your background and then what inspired you to become a teacher.
Okay, so growing up, I loved learning. I was that kid that would stay after and ask for extra worksheets and ask for extra workbooks, and then I would take them home. And my grandmother, she lived with us, and she was born in the 30s. She was one of 5 siblings, and so she was the oldest, or she and her twin were the oldest, and she dropped out in the 4th grade, so she never really learned how to read, and she could sign her name, but that was it. And so it was my mission to teach her how to read and teach her all these things. She tried, but it was just something. I just had this passion for learning and for teaching people how to learn. And so that's I think the first time I really thought I want to be a teacher was in the 1st grade. Kept going through school, and then I started thinking, you just don't make a lot of money as a teacher, but I want to help kids because I love kids, so I'll be a pediatric nurse. So I went to high school, and I took the very first health team relations class, and within the first week I passed out at the conversation of blood, and I was like, okay, I don't think this is what the Lord has planned for me. So I circled back around to teaching, go to college, fell in love with it, but then I found a ministry that I fell in love with that was working with teenagers, and thought maybe I'll take a break from teaching. And my parents were like, hey, this is something you've always wanted to do. You've made a lot of sacrifices in order to go to school for teaching. Why don't you just try it? And my first day of student teaching, I remember coming home crying and being like, I'll never do anything else. I can't imagine not teaching. And while it's hard and it's exhausting and it's stressful and it can be frustrating, the reward that you get from teaching, I just can't fathom not having those in my life. So.
Yeah. I think a lot of teachers that really love their job, they have a very similar story to that. It was kind of like a calling, and they knew whenever they were a kid. Because school is one of those things that everybody has to go through. Mm-hmm. And I think just because you're exposed to it so young, they can be like those teachers that you had in the 1st grade, they could be your superheroes, and that changes the way that you, go forward.
Yeah. I remember when I was doing my student teaching, one of the teachers here, she said, everyone thinks that they can teach because everyone's been through school, but it's very different on the other side. And I'm not going to lie, there are days and there have been years when I'm like, yeah, this is it. I can't do it anymore, just because it's so hard and the world makes it so easy to think I could work way less harder. I don't even know if that's grammatically correct. I could work way less and make way more. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, the amount of money that you have in your bank is not the same as the amount of joy you have in your cup, Mm-hmm. And so I was I constantly come back and I'm what really is going to make a difference in the world, and not that sitting behind a cubicle can't make a difference, but for me, I know that I feel like the Lord has given me gifts, and if I am in a cubicle and I'm just working in isolation, I'm letting some of those gifts go to waste.
100%. Yeah, I love the way that you say that. And it's funny that you said that whenever you're a kid or whenever you're younger, everyone thinks that they can teach, because that's exactly what I thought too. My whole family works in education. So my mom does, my dad does, and now my sister does. And so whenever I was going up through school, I was like, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Just because that's pretty much all I knew.
Right.
But the older I got, the faster I learned. I cannot teach a lick of nothing.
Yeah.
I can't even explain like TikTok videos that I see to my girlfriend or like
Right.
my family. It's like I can't give off information in a healthy way, you know.
And it is a gift, but I will say, you know, there's something that we say a lot in this building, like, I could teach you how to teach, but I can't teach you how to love kids.
Right.
You know, and so like the way you might explain something might be different than me. The hard thing is when the way you explain something doesn't work with most of your kids, and you really have to rethink, okay, how can I better get this point across? But it is hard. And I respect that you're like, yeah, that is a hard profession, because a lot of people don't think it is.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, oh, you get summers off, you don't work on the weekends, like you get to sleep in, you get long Christmas breaks. But there's a reason why, you know, we need those breaks.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's crazy. Because my sister, she's a first year teacher, like right now, and the amount of work that she does at home it blows my mind. It's like anytime I see her, she's working, you know, and it's like, dude, put your laptop away.
Right.
For one. It's like, wait till planning tomorrow.
But you know that, and she probably has already felt, I can't get what I need to get done in 1 hour.
in the
you
day.
know, and if you have a meeting in that hour, or if you have, you know, all those emails that you have to check and communicate. I remember when I first started teaching, I was still living at home, but I was in a very serious relationship with my husband, and he would like go to bed at like 10:30, and I would say like, I'll text you when I go to sleep, but it would not be till like 2:00. And I'd wake up at 6 to get to work, and I'd do it all over again. Now that I've gotten a couple years on my belt, teaching wise and life wise, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I just can't get that little amount of sleep. But there's so much work that goes into this. My mom, she works in corporate, and she'll, you know, she might be stressing over a meeting she has to lead, and she's like, I have to have these slides, and you know, it's about an hour long, and there's gonna be like 25 people, or she might have 50 people, 100 people, whatever. But I'm like, Mom, as a teacher in the high school, I have 6 meetings a day for an hour with 20 to 30 kids, 35 kids, and I have to keep them engaged. I have to prepare for that. I have to create activities. Then I have to assess what they did on those activities and see, did it work? And then I have to reevaluate and do it all over again the next day. And she was like, yeah, there's no way. I mean, like, it's just a lot when you think about it like that.
Yeah, and it's fantastic that you love that.
Yeah.
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 It's an adrenaline, you know.
Right.
Well, I think that like loving the grind there's something like special about that.
Yeah.
And especially whenever you find it whenever you're like younger, because it's like all that you've known your whole life is like the pursuit of that grind, whether you were as student or on the other side of it. So it's super interesting. Yeah. One of the questions that I have, and it goes around kind of like what you said, like keeping everybody engaged, 6 meetings a day engaged. How do you deal with the declining attention spans of just kids in general?
So one thing, and I'm not going to try to quote research of this topic. I'm just going to preface with that, but I do know that it is out there. One thing that today I actually had a group of kids, and at the end of the day, they were just like, heads were down, like they were just done, like they were fried. And I was like, okay, how can I like get them up and get them engaged? Back to the research. Research shows that like if you're sitting for too long, if you're idle for too long, the blood is literally starting to pool like in your feet and wherever you're sitting. And so it's not getting to your brain as quickly. And so you're not getting the oxygen to your brain as quickly. And so your brain isn't like
Firing.
Exactly. And so there's all this research and this new movement of brain breaks. And so get kids up, get them moving, even if it has nothing to do with the content. Today we played a rock, paper, scissors tournament, and these kids literally like got so hype about this. And then we like had fun for 5 minutes. It took 5 minutes out of my 65-minute class. And then I sat them back down and we moved on to the next thing. And they were more engaged than when they walked into the class for the first time. because there's this jolt of energy.
Right.
So sometimes I'll do that related to the content. Other times I'll do it like today. It had nothing to do with what we were doing. Some teachers will do like Just Dance. My students are not Just Dance fans. I am, but they are not. But I just try to figure out what works for them. I might play Name That Tune, something to kind of take their mind off of the boringness of school, let them have fun, and then come back. Because it's also letting them know that, like, I see them, and they're more than just a student in a classroom. Because I only get them for an hour a day, 5 days a week, 36 weeks a year. They're more than just, like, what happens in this room. They're humans.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's super interesting. It's super interesting to have to think about it that way. And then also, every class is different with what works and what doesn't work.
Yes.
And there's no way to know. On day one, you have no idea.
No. And what's crazy, too, and I don't know if y'all have ever experienced this in a team or in, like, a small group, like, if one personality is removed, it changes the dynamic.
Yeah, completely.
100%.
In a good way or a bad way. And so having to know and having to be able to think on your feet. Some people love it. Some people hate it. I like how every day is different. But it gives a lot of people anxiety.
Yeah.
Because you can plan to an extent, but some of it's just you got to roll with the punches.
100%.
So, do you think that the use of social media has anything to do with the declining attention span of teens?
Yes, completely. Again, I'm not a researcher. I haven't done the studies. I couldn't quote an article. But when you think about it logically, TikTok, for example, or Instagram Reels, if you have something that lasts 50 seconds, and then I can just scroll, or if I see it and in the first 5 seconds I'm not interested, I can just scroll to the next thing. It's an instant gratification of like, that's boring, I'm going to move on to the next thing. Or, oh, that was fascinating, I want to go to this profile and I want to just watch it on repeat. And that's not what life truly looks like. You can't be in the grocery store and be like, this teller is taking too long, scroll to move to the next one. You have to sit and be patient. And I catch myself doing it too. And so and that's why, whereas maybe when I was in school in the 2010s, I'll just leave it at that, I may have had a 90-minute class and we had one lecture for 90 minutes. That literally would not fly in 2023.
Yeah.
You have to chunk what you're going to do in class. And I can't say we're going to do this one thing all day unless that is a very engaging process. They tend to say, like, keep things to 15-minute chunks, which makes planning more complicated because now instead of saying, oh, we're going to read this book for an hour, we're going to actually do this for 15 minutes, and then we're going to write this for 15, then we're going to play a game for 5, and you have to think about more activities.
Yeah, and I would even say that 15 minutes is kind of a push, too, because I see it in my life and I think it's definitely from TikTok, but those 15-second clips, 30-second clips, even the videos on TikTok that are now 3 minutes long are hard to watch.
Yeah, you're like, okay, get to the point. Like,
Exactly.
Why can't you just finish that?
Yeah, I know, and I get there all the time, and it's a crazy place to be, and it's honestly a sad thing to think that my attention span has already declined that much just from being on this app for however many years it's been a thing, but it's just like the truth.
Well, and I'm glad that you said that because it's not just teenagers. A lot of times, or children, adolescents, we tend to say, think it's just them. But as a teacher, if you're in a leadership capacity in any way, sometimes you get to teach your peers or lead them in a meeting. And I even have seen it in veteran teachers that have been teaching for 25 years. Like after 10 to 15 minutes of the same topic, they're checked out. You've got to they need to either be doing something or you've got to move on. Because it's all of us. So yeah, that's definitely, it's definitely a huge topic in education right now is how do we either work with the attention spans or work on the stamina to build attention spans. So
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, and
That's the tough one, I think.
that is so tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I never even thought about it like that. Because it's the same thing as any other kind of evolution, I guess you could say. It's you got to embrace it, or you got to figure out a way to break the habit.
Right.
But it's like, which is going to be better in the long run.
right, what and truly, like, what battle are you willing to fight?
Right.
Like, if I
Because
have
it's only
somebody-
so possible.
Right. If I have one meeting, I'm not going to try to fight it for that one meeting. But if I've got a group of kids for 4 years through like an advisory program, that could be something that I'm going to say, no, hey guys, we're going to actually work on this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you got to, like, I don't want to sound bad when I say this, but it's like, what's the greater evil of like fighting it or just like giving into it and embracing it? But how long are we going to embrace it?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
To what cost are we embracing it?
Right. 'Cause I think that's interesting too, because one of the questions that I wanted to ask you was, or have you ever thought about incorporating like social media-esque practices or whatever into like teaching in general? Have you ever like thought of something like that, just in general from like a professional side of it? Because for me, I personally really like long form content. Like my favorite day in college, going to class, is lecture day. It's my
Really?
favorite. Yeah, because it's just information dump. I
Yeah.
don't have to worry about doing anything else. I'm just there to kind of absorb it all.
Well, and back to like trying to appeal to different students, there are still students that are like, just give me the information. Like, I had a group today and I said, hey guys, like, we're going to read this long article. I'm going to chunk it up so you don't feel like you're bored for 30 minutes while reading. We got through the first 10-minute chunk and I was like, do you want to play a game or do you want to keep reading? And they're like, can we just keep reading just to get it over with? As far as social media, so I am a yearbook advisor, so part of my job is like marketing a business. That's what yearbook is. I mean, we're creating this incredible product, but you have to sell the product in order to keep creating it. So I have to teach kids how to use social media and what are some different tactics for engagement. So I use it in that sense. In other years, I also would encourage students, not that we would post them, but I would encourage them to create a product as if it were going to go on social media. So whether it's a reel, I don't know if that answers your question or kind of like what you're thinking, but it just goes back to like trying to meet kids where they are. And if kids are fascinated with TikTok, or if I say TikTok and they're like, oh, I can make a cool TikTok to show that I can do X, Y, Z, I will do that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've thought about, my mom's a college professor, and so I've talked to her a lot. She asks me questions like just about the way that I feel about learning and stuff like that all the time. And she was like, I don't know how to, she does a lot of online classes, and she's like, I don't know how to do like lecture the most efficiently. And I was like, why don't you just press record and then upload it to Canvas? That way they can go and look at it after. They can turn it up to 2 times speed and scrub through it, and then there's an hour-long lecture in an hour and a half an hour now.
And the nice thing about that is you can rewind.
Exactly.
You know, like
100%.
And
Yeah, you can slow it down too.
right.
Yeah.
And you can like press pause and play it again, and because you can't do that in real life. Like, I mean, you can ask your teacher, your professor, but if you're in a lecture hall of, 50 kids, 400 kids, whatever, like, you're probably not gonna be like, hey, can you say that again?
Or if you're like nervous. Some
Right.
people are like that.
Right. They're like, I'm just, even in a class of 10,
Yeah.
like, I have kids that are not going to ask me to repeat myself. But so, and I have done that when I taught virtually for COVID. I did a lot of recordings and say, like, hey, you can either choose to listen to me, you can choose to join the Zoom, or you can choose to just go through the keynote or the PowerPoint at your own pace. It's all got the same information. But I do think there's something powerful about documenting something.
Yeah. The ability to go back. Like
Yeah.
the ability to have the archive.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's super important too. Yeah, 100%. You mentioned yearbook, and you do the most things of any like high school teacher that I've ever like been around. Like yearbook, prom, teacher, all of it.
Yeah, Young Life.
Yeah, Young Life.
Coached at one point.
Yeah, so many things. I guess, how do you balance all of those things? How do you not go insane in 36 weeks?
So I'm actually working on that.
Okay.
I was actually just talking to a newer teacher, and you were talking about the grind and growing up. Like, I was like the girl in high school that was in student council and a cheerleader, as well as a color guard member, and I was in varsity chorus and a competitive dancer, and I was a youth leader. Like, I just have always run 90 miles an hour. And it goes back to, I had a 8th grade teacher, and he quoted scripture to me in my yearbook. He gave me a hard time all year, but it was in order to kind of teach me this lesson of, like, the scripture he wrote was, to whom much is given, much is required. And so, and there was a quote, I wanted as my senior quote, it was too long, but it was like, when I stand before God at the end of my life, I hope that I could say I used everything you gave me. So I've always lived with this mentality of, like, Madison, if you can do all these things, like, why not? I'd rather be busy than bored. But there is something that can be toxic in that. And you can go insane or get burnt out. And so something that I've learned over the past 7 years in education, or like, I guess 6, I'm going into year 7, is that say yes, but when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And so to what cost are you going to say yes? If you're saying yes, but you're sacrificing time with your family, you have to really evaluate that. If you're saying yes, but sacrificing rest or sacrificing your mental health or your physical health, you really need to evaluate, where is my time best spent? And so something that I'm announcing is that, like, I'm going to be starting a family. And knowing that, I know that my time is going to change. So I'm not going to be able to do prom and yearbook and Young Life and AP classes and leadership teams and all of that and still be the best mom I can be. Now, does that mean I'm going to quit everything and just focus on one? No, because that's just not how I function. But I have to look at, where is my time best spent, and where are my talents best used? And is there someone else that I can train in order to raise up the next leader? Because really, like, I'm not going to be here forever. So who is younger than me that is also capable, that would be really passionate and might be better at this than I am, and trying to pour into them? That's how you build a community, you know?
Yeah, I think that is one of the most important things, is instead of focusing on what I do right now matters to these people because ... It's like, what I'm putting into this right now is only for the next person that comes along behind me to keep the legacy going, you know? And so whenever we were at South and we did the studio, like, the only thing that I was focused on was, what kind of things can I build right now that somebody else can take on after me and, like, keep this going.
Right.
Because this isn't about me, and this isn't about me, like, being on a microphone in the booth commentating a football game.
Right.
It's like, I want this to be a thing for a long, long time.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so I think that is, like, a really healthy way to look at the stuff that you're doing right now, because then it's not about you.
Exactly. And truly, that's something that I've had to come to understand, because it does feel good, like, when people ask you to do things, because you're like, oh, I feel wanted, or they think I'm capable. But then you have to realize, if you say yes to all these things, you know, say yes to 10 things, really, they're only getting 10% of your efforts.
Right.
But if you say yes to 2 things, then you really can pour into that. And then maybe that third thing that you had to give up, you actually are mentoring someone else to do it. That way it doesn't just fall by the wayside. You know, when I do start a family and I go on maternity leave, like, it doesn't just not happen because no one else is there to pick it up. Or I never imparted that knowledge. And I'm not saying just me, but anybody in any coaching position or any organization, you know, that's why, you know, working in community and working in teams and partnerships is so great. Because otherwise, it's just like, if you're the only one standing and then you leave for whatever reason, that's going to crumble. It's easier to crumble.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I think that the ability to even care if it would crumble, that, like, shows how much you care about everything that you do, which is, like, important. Because there's a lot of people who just do a job for 40 years, and then whenever they're clocked out,
they're done.
Who cares? Yeah. Exactly.
Which, you know, I think about that, and I've never had that type of mentality Sometimes people say, like, I care too much. They're like, Madison, you just need to walk away. And, you know, I'm okay with that. Like, if that's my flaw, like, I'm willing to take that as my flaw. Because if you're doing something that you don't care about, like, why are you doing it? Like, you're just doing it for a paycheck? Because a lot of people say, well, I just work so I can live. But how cool would it be if your job is, like, if what you get to do, like, you don't necessarily consider it work, like, it's truly, like, a part of your life. Like, that is what, I mean, if you're spending I see my students more than I see my immediate family, just being the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
And so if you're just, like, going in to make a paycheck, like, my prayer is that, like, everybody would be able to have something in their life that they're spending that much time on that brings them joy, that they feel fulfilled, and they feel like I'm actually making a difference, rather than I'm just making a paycheck so I can go pay my bills, you know, buy groceries, whatever.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that we talk about repeatedly, but it's that we hope that people can find what they love and figure out how they can do it for the rest of their life. And much easier said than done.
Yes.
It takes a long time to figure out what you love to do. Luckily for us, it didn't take quite as long as it takes most people, but it's just, like, I couldn't imagine working the rest of my life doing something that I just considered work.
Right.
You know,
Right.
It's like what I go to school for, and then what I eventually hope to get a job in is something that I truly just enjoy to do.
Right.
And it's like, and they just happen to give me money for it. You know, that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I really couldn't imagine.
I will say, like, my husband, and I don't think he would mind me, you know, sharing this, like, he went to college. He thought he had a calling, and he was like, I don't know, like, that's not going to make a lot of money. Maybe I won't be successful in it. And so he shifted his pathway and graduated with a major that landed him in a position where he either was going to have to go to more school, which he didn't want to do because we were going to get married, and that just wasn't what he wanted, or do something totally different that just required a degree. So that's what he did. And then it just didn't work out. And so he was like, maybe this isn't it. So he left, and he ended up getting another job that he was like, I know this is not it. It was like manual labor. And he was like, this is not for me. So he got another job, and he was like, this is okay. I could do this. I make money. I get time off. I get benefits, but it wasn't fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
Got another job. And he was like, again, I get to help people, but it's kind of the same thing of, like, I'm just getting a paycheck. And until recently, he circled all the way back into the calling that he had when he was 18. And he was like, I think this is it. And he is interning at our church as a youth pastor. And he's like, he's not making any money, but he's like, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is the most fulfilling experience that I've had since I ran from this calling. But he's not making money, and so he's still got to have another job. And so he's worked his way into another pathway where he'll still be working with kids in a fulfilling way, but also get to work in ministry simultaneously. And so, you know, we're the same age, and even though I left college and my first day of student teaching, I knew this is what I wanted to do, at least for this season of life. It took him 6-7 years to kind of make his way. And I know that there are people that are in their 50s and 60s, and they're still like, is this what I want to do? Like, they're still, and that's okay. Like, I think the world tells us you need to know what you want to do as soon as you graduate high school, or you're a failure. And there's a season for everything. And so while I say, like, being a teacher is all I've ever wanted to do and what I see myself doing right now, I know that in 5 years that could change, that season could change. Do I see myself leaving education? No. But does my role in the classroom look different? Maybe. And you just really don't know. With the evolution of technology and the job market, there are jobs that exist today that before COVID didn't exist.
Yeah.
social media management, for example. Like when I was in college, had I been told that you could work on social media and get paid, for some people, 6 figures, I'd been like, sign me up.
Yeah.
But it didn't exist.
Right.
And so I'm like, what's going to exist in education or in, social media or in entertainment in 5 years?
You never know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So I want to take it back to the classroom a little bit. One of the biggest things now in the kind of world of education, I would think, is tailoring people's education to fit their personal education needs. So whether that's their learning style or whatever that could be. So what is your kind of approach to that and making accommodations for people and figuring out what works best for each individual?
So that's a great question. And I think it's different in every content area. And my content area is English. And so what we do in our district is our goal is that every student, by the time they graduate, they are committed to either being enrolled, enlisted, or employed. And so throughout their 4 years, we try to give them as many opportunities to explore in order to make that declaration and make that commitment. But as it is challenging as someone I was strictly enrolled. Like, I graduated from high school, I went to college, I graduated from college, I went and got my master's degree. Like, all I know is education. I don't have anyone in my immediate family that has been enlisted. Now, I know what it looks like to graduate and go into the workforce, so I am more educated in helping people with that. But that's required me to go out and ask questions and ask our ROTC teachers and ask other people that have been enlisted. And so I try to encourage my students to start having those conversations earlier. As far as in the English class, last year in English 3, there were a handful of research projects where I encouraged them to go and research what does it look like to get to where you want to be. What are the steps that you have to take? What are the institutions or the skills that you need to be, what's the word I'm looking for? A desirable applicant. What are the military branches that you're interested in, and what is the ASVAB score? Like, all these things, I had to do some learning before I could teach them how to reach those pathways. Another way outside of the English content is through our advisory course. And so we spend a lot of time having conversations with kids, because I know when I was in school, there was a big push for going straight to college, and we know that's not everybody's pathway, and that's okay. I respect all the different pathways for various reasons, but it just didn't feel like there was a lot of conversation about what your journey looked like if it wasn't enrolled. Everyone knew when college applications went out. Everyone knew when the ACT and the SATs were, but not everyone was talking about meeting a recruiter for the military. Not everyone was talking about what are the interview skills, what's appropriate attire for an interview, how do you contact a possible employer. And so we've really shifted to having those conversations now rather than having them intentionally with kids, rather than just expecting kids at 15, 16, 17, 18 to know that it's time to have those conversations.
Yeah, but I think that's smart. And I think that a big thing when it comes to making the decision on what to do after high school, now because of social media, you have so many different perspectives on what is possible straight out of high school. Like, there's so many kids who graduate from high school and they think like starting a business is the right decision, or enrolled, or whatever. But because you can see everybody's different, or all of the different options literally on your phone, those conversations need to be had earlier, so just so that way the kids can have the justice that they're deserved. You know what I mean?
Yes, and just that exposure, like you said. Like, I think sometimes we don't know what we have access to. Social media and the internet truly is like, it seems infinite, like what you can access now. And so just having those conversations and guiding kids in a direction and like probing them to say, hey, don't forget to think about what's coming down the line. Because a lot of times, I mean, with really anybody, but teenagers specifically, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. What's right in front of me right now happening this week is all that really feels so urgent. But we have to try to teach people to start looking a step ahead or 2 steps ahead.
Yeah.
It's super hard for the young people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it was, but I always thought, I guess, further ahead. But I think it's just because, like, I knew I wanted to make videos from whenever I was, like, 16. And so then it was just, like, figure it out from there. Yeah.
And I think one thing that it is a personality thing, because some kids are just like, I don't even want to think about beyond next week. And I mean, I'm an only child, and my 3rd grade teacher talked to my parents at a parent-teacher conference, and they were like, is she an only child? And they were like, is she misbehaving? Like, is she acting like a brat? And they were like, no. On the first day of school at lunch, she looked at the girl beside her and said, what college do you want to go to? I want to go to UNC Chapel Hill. Most 3rd graders aren't talking about that.
Right.
But in my household, that's what we talked about. But what you have to realize in any given classroom, if I have 25 kids, I have 25 different households. They all look so different. And I can't assume that all 25 are having the same conversations that I had in my household. Because that's just it's not fair.
No.
Right.
And so when you're having these conversations in the classroom, you are leveling the playing field a little bit more. And even if the kid graduates or is 18 and they still have no idea, at least someone's asked them and had them, hey, have you thought about this? Hey, you're really good at this. Have you considered being interested in this? Have you done a job shadow to see, would you be interested in doing this every day? If no one ever asked them, then how are they going to know to do something about it?
Yeah, they're just never going to think about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes, too, if nobody tells you you're good at something, you don't realize you are. Because you have no idea.
Yeah.
You know, whenever you're like 15, you don't know if you're good at anything.
Right.
Because who's going to tell you?
Or you might think that you're really good at it.
Yeah.
But you're really not.
But then hopefully you have somebody that will tell you that you're not.
And that's truly the gift of being an educator, is you get to have those really significant conversations with kids. And say, like, you could change the face of this industry with your talent and this skill. And I think that's what's so cool about high school is, you know, in your foundational years of elementary and, I mean, middle, you do some exploratories, but high school, there's so many electives and so many opportunities to explore your interest. You know, kids really, because, you know, when did you find out you wanted to make videos?
Probably at 16.
But, like, what made you?
Like, the spark probably, like, just being YouTube was what I always wanted to do.
Okay.
So I was probably, like, 5.
But was there, like, a class that you were, like, you got to actually play around with the editing software?
Yeah. Here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so,
exactly.
And so that's kind of the thing. Like, you know, we have a really cool, it's called the Spark Lab, and we're one of 17 schools in North Carolina that have this lab, and it's got different modules, and it's all technology based. So, like, kids get to explore, like, computer science and robotics and AI and all these different things. And if they find a passion in it, that's going to spark them to go to college for this or to get certified in XYZ. But if we don't give kids opportunities and experiences, how are they going to find that passion unless they just stumble upon it, which happens, but not for everybody.
And it's completely by chance.
Exactly.
Completely by chance.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is tough. That's one of our biggest pieces of advice, and it's one of the ones I always say, which is, like, whenever you're young, especially whenever you're in high school, trying everything costs nothing except for time.
Yep.
But whenever you're 15, time is a commodity.
Yes.
So,
one of my students that just graduated, she leaves for college next week, and she came by to see me. And that was one of the things I told her, like, go to the free events, go to the free classes, sign up for the elective, go do the workshop in the community library. Like, I love that you said, like, trying something new costs nothing. Unless you're, like, doing something really expensive. Like, you want to build a computer, that's going to cost money. But going to a free class or a $20 class is nothing compared to missing out on something that you could have loved and done for the rest of your life.
Or compared to a semester.
Right.
Yeah.
That you're paying money for in college. Because that you really are losing money if you hate it.
Yeah.
So
100%. But there is something about, too, it's unfortunate if you spend a semester learning things at college where you're paying tuition and every class you hate, but you did learn that you hated those things. So there is
Right.
some value in that, but it's just unfortunate.
that you had to, it came
Yeah,
at a cost.
exactly.
But maybe you made a connection with a
Right.
classmate and that, you know, or
Mhm.
maybe you met a professor that you're like, hey, you know, they want me to babysit. Now I'm making extra money
Right.
and they have a connection, you know. So you just never know what networks you're going to make and what connections are going to lead you
Yeah,
to the next
100%.
That's what it's all about.
And that's one of
yeah.
the things too I think about all the time is completely like different perspective shifts from high school to college. Is like maybe not whenever I was in high school personally, but most high school students, whenever they have to do like group work, they hate that because they don't want to have to like talk to new people or whatever. But like I look forward to that all the time because that's a completely new perspective
Yeah.
on everything, not just whatever the subject matter is. Like they tie their shoes different than you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you're like having conversations about like, what'd you have for dinner last
Yeah.
night? One of the classes I teach is, 45% of the curriculum is around working with diverse groups and working collaboratively and presenting. And it's an AP level course. It's called AP Seminar. But I force them to work with people that they don't know, that they're not familiar with. But I always start like the group work assignment or activity with like, introduce yourself and tell them, you know, what you have for dinner last night. Introduce yourself and tell them your last song that you listened to on, your Spotify or
Sure. Apple.
whatever.
Yeah.
I'm a Spotify girl,
Gotcha.
but
I think we're both on the Apple team. Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, that is
It's
just
way
so-
prettier.
That's why y'all are on that side and I'm on this side. But anyways, those little things. But truly, if you don't teach kids how to have random little common conversations like that, you're going to go through life and like not do that.
Yeah.
Now, does my husband get irritated when I talk to random people at the grocery store and it takes us 20 extra minutes? Yes.
Yeah. Sure.
But why not? We don't have to live this life in silos. We're supposed to live in community. So,
Yeah.
strangers are dangerous, so I have to be careful.
But like whenever you are in a situation, especially whenever you're around, and in college it's super easy because whenever I'm in my like audio production class, everybody in there is interested in the same thing.
Right.
So conversations are super easy.
Right.
But whenever you're in high school, you're all interested in the same things because you're all 15 to 18.
Yes.
So whether or not you think you are or not, you all like the same stuff.
There's something in common.
100%.
Even if it's like you're both complaining about how busy the hallway is.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
There's something.
Complain together as a
Yes.
team.
Yes.
Yeah.
But maybe don't stick with the complaint.
No, you can always pivot.
But yes.
Yeah, you can always pivot.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. This is a fun question that I wanted to ask because
Okay.
I think about the thing that I think of whenever I think about back to school is the stuff in your backpack.
Oh
Your teaching, I have it written down
The
as
school
gear.
supplies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your school supplies.
Mm,
So what is your like favorite or like signature piece of like back to school supplies?
I have to have a cute notebook. Even if I don't write in it all year, I have to have a cute notebook. I have to have cute pens. And I want them all to match. Like, literally, everyone else cringes when the school supplies comes out in, like, January. When school supplies comes out in, like, July. But I'm, like, running to the aisles to say, like, what notebooks do they have this year? It drives my husband crazy because he says, Madison, you use your computer every day. Like, why do you need another notebook? Because they're cute.
Right.
Because they're pretty.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually had someone comment on one of my Facebook posts. She's one of my neighbors, and she taught for 30 years. And she said every year when school supplies comes out, she thinks of me.
Yeah.
Because I used to be giddy when the list would come out in Walmart, and it would be like, Miss Anderson's third grade class, Landis Elementary. And I would sprint to get it and be like, Mom, we have to get everything color coordinated. It needs to be like this, and it has to go in my book bag perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I would have it packed weeks before the school
Right.
started.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we've said on some of our back to school episodes is that if it's not like if you're not excited to use the thing, you're never going to use it.
Absolutely not.
Never going to use it. So if you
Absolutely
get the lame notebook, you're never touching it.
No,
Ever.
I have like literally. I mean, you can see all my fuzzy pins. Y'all can see them. I don't know if the camera
Yeah.
can see them, but like, it's just I like things to be pretty. I'm a pink girl, and so it probably has a color scheme with pink in it. But it just brings me joy.
Exactly.
That's
You
all that
know.
matters. You know?
It's the little things.
Yeah.
As long as you're having a good time,
Right.
and that's all that matters.
Right. There's nothing like breaking open a new box of highlighters, cracking open a new notebook. It makes the school year, I think, less stressful.
And
Yeah.
fun.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I think so too.
The new book bag, the new lunchbox.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think especially like whenever you talk about notebooks and stuff, and like Austin said, whenever you get something that you're excited about, you're more likely to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if you get a notebook that you really like, you got your new pens, it's
You
like
can't wait to break it out.
you're going to take notes in class. That's just
Yes.
how it is. We both are iPad guys, and
I want to be an iPad note taker, and I have to have a notebook.
some people are like that.
Yeah.
But it's like I got my iPad, and the first time that I took it to school, it changed my life. It was like, this is it. This is for me. I make my iPad pretty by changing the wallpaper.
Yeah.
The same way that
I
you buy a new
guess.
notebook.
It just
but
doesn't have the same smell
No.
and like the same
Feeling.
crispness of
Yeah.
when you turn the page.
I'm telling, the first time you open a notebook, especially ones that have the little taped seam.
Yes.
The first time you open that thing up and it like crackles, it's
There's
a nice
you
thing.
just because I have a personal iPad and a school iPad, and I've downloaded the notes apps, and I've gotten the pens, and I've done it for about a week, and then I'm like, meh, it died. I'm gonna go get my notebook.
Yeah.
I just like the efficiency of it.
And that is true. Like, my husband is very like tech driven. He was like, why do you have a million notebooks? You have an iPad. You can make notebooks in your iPad. It's right there. You can access it on your phone and your laptop. You're an Apple user. But it's just not the same.
Yeah.
It's just not the same.
I respect it.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, everyone's different.
There is a screen protector that you can get that makes it feel like paper. You tried that?
I do have that. My application of it was pretty poor.
Okay,
and
got
there's
it.
like
Bubbles and
dust
stuff.
particles up underneath it. My
Yeah.
husband is mortified. He was like, Madison, I cannot believe. And I said, will you just please do it for me? But
Yeah.
I was joking with my students today. I hope this doesn't offend anyone. But I was like on my laptop's airplaying, and for whatever reason, I had like zoomed in. Like, I had made my cursor like a magnifying glass in the preview app, and I couldn't get it off. And I was like, I am such a millennial. Like, I know how to use a computer, but I don't really know. And they thought that was so fun. I really am a millennial, but they were mortified. They also just taught me about what a VPN is and how to use a VPN.
Man, just now?
Dude,
I
that's
mean, I've
crazy.
heard about
Sure,
it for
sure.
years, but I'm like, that's not real. It's gonna eat me a
Yeah.
virus.
Well,
And they're
yeah,
like,
so the way that kids in high school use VPNs is not the way that you're
Yeah.
really supposed to use them. But
yeah. But
yeah.
I was like, I finally caved, and because I use social media for, yearbook, and I couldn't access it because there are restrictions, which I completely understand and respect, for like social media platforms. But they were like, if you had a VPN, you could post for yearbook. And I was like,
yeah.
I'll just wait till I get home. They're like, no, miss, you need to do it now. And so, they showed me, and now I used it, and it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically all it does is it just takes you off the grid.
It just, yeah.
Right. But,
Exactly.
and it's still like, the cloud kind of blows my mind.
Yeah.
Cloud blows my mind too. Bluetooth is the one that gets me.
Yeah.
Bluetooth, yeah.
It
I don't
all is
understand it.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, my husband, he understands it all. He like tries to explain it, and I'm like, there are just some things
I don't care.
I'm okay if I don't know.
Me too. That's
Yeah.
how I feel too.
But I do think that clouds bring storms. And so when something is like in the cloud, I'm like, this is never coming. I don't.
I'm never getting this back. Right. That's an interesting way to think about
I
that.
haven't updated.
I've never heard that one
I have
before.
like no storage in my cloud, and every time I'll get like a notification, I got it a couple days ago, and it said, you haven't updated, or you haven't synced your photos in 503 days. And I was like, I
Man,
also
if-
have like 46,000 images and videos on my phone.
If you drop your phone in the lake, they're all
And
gone.
it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them are in the cloud.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but
Oof.
that's why, I've got the big mamma jamma
Yeah.
with lots of storage.
Yeah, thankfully I've never had to use any of that stuff. Like
Yeah.
I've never had to go searching in the cloud for anything that I've lost, just because
I don't st- we,
I've
we-
never
I
I've never
wouldn't even-
lost
I
my
wouldn't
cell
even know how.
phone or
Oh,
at least with I don't save anything to the cloud, but we have storage.
yeah,
Because we
external
have
storage.
like
yeah.
SSDs and hard drives because we have. I mean, I have 2 terabytes of video just
Well, and
around.
That's what I do. Like my laptop constantly gets full because I mean I'm grateful that they provide those to us for free. It's a part of being a teacher.
Mhm.
But with yearbook, I mean I'll get thousands and thousands and
Photos.
thousands of pictures and
Yeah.
videos, and so it gets full like
Super
that.
fast, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so I have a hard drive, and I save everything at the end of every year. But my phone is where I do take a lot of, because my camera on my phone is better than like our Canon Rebel
Sure.
7. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's just you go to a pep rally and
It's also way easier.
it is, and it's faster, and
Faster.
there's just so much that I can do right there and edit, and adjust
Yeah.
lighting, but I'll go to a pep rally and take 400 pictures like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whereas on a camera, I might go to a prep rally and take
25.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I would hope that my yearbook staff would take more like 250, and then we might find 25 really good ones.
Yeah.
But it's just very different. But what I don't do is I don't go back and delete.
Ah, gotcha.
I don't cull my photos
Sure.
in my cell phone, which
Right.
I really should.
It's hard though because then you have to. It's a lot more difficult to cull them off of your phone than off of your camera because
Yes.
you just plug the SD card in and you open it up and you can AirPlay it if you want, so it's
Yep.
nice and huge.
Yep.
And you just get rid of all of it.
But I will tell you, one of my friends taught me this trick. She said, if you need to kind of help, get rid of some photos for storage, she said every day, if you just like open up your photo app and you just go and you search like, what's today, August 15th,
Mhm.
and you search like August 15th, you can pull up every single picture that was ever, see, it just said 510 days. But you can search like August 15th and it will pull up all of my pictures from August 15th. And then I go through and get rid of things that I don't want, all the way back from like 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you're doing that every day,
Then it eventually compounds.
eventually,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Which I did that for like, I took a break from social media during Lent. So I would do that during Lent, but then Lent was over and I got back on social media and I stopped that habit.
Yeah.
But, yeah, something fun.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned that you're a millennial and you sort of know how to use a computer. But
Sorry to interrupt. I'm a little more tech savvy than I let myself. Like, that was truly a
Yeah.
joke, but there are a lot of things that I wish I knew more of. But
100%.
sorry, go ahead.
No worries. But a conversation that I had with one of my professors is like, I was explaining to him how like our senior year we switched to iPads, and that's what a lot of school systems use like as their piece of tech. I mean, we just gassed the iPad up, but I'm gonna roast it for like a second.
Yeah.
Like it's limited. There's only so many things you can do, especially like for us, when it comes to editing and stuff like that, like videos. But there's coming probably like, I don't know, maybe like 4 years younger than us that are gonna come into college where they don't know how to use a laptop.
Yep.
They're stuck. They know how to use a touchscreen
Yeah.
interface. That's it. They don't know how to use a mouse.
My current seniors, they've never had a laptop
Mm-hmm.
because, it would have been your senior year when they were freshmen.
iPads.
And they came in with iPads, and I was like, sweet, I don't have to do like the laptop iPad exchange and try to teach them how to use iPads because I am a laptop user.
Mhm.
Like I said, I have an iPad, but I knew how to teach on a laptop. I knew how to all these things, but I like actually had to learn over the summer of like, I like created things on like Google Slides and was like, what would this look like on the student side so I can show them where these buttons are? Because I knew my upperclassmen would have no idea.
Yeah.
But my freshmen, they knew. And I was like, can you show me where this is? Can you tell me how to download this and how to open it in files and yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
And they taught me a lot. But that's still like, I was teaching something today. And I really should be better because I have a school-issued iPad as well. I really should be better about teaching from my iPad because I know if I'm using the same technology as they are, I catch those hiccups quicker than if I'm doing something on my laptop and then they're like, hey, it doesn't work like that on the iPad. Or, hey, we can't open this on the iPad. We have to use
Right.
this way, whatever. Like today, they were struggling to attach a file using the iPad because it was in a different place
Right.
than the laptop.
It's not on their desktop. They don't have a desktop.
Yep.
Yeah.
They have to go to the Files app.
Right.
And I'm like, I wish they could just add it to their desktop, but whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm not friends with Apple product makers, but I do have some suggestions just about.
But you never
all kinds
know.
of things.
But that's something I think about that a lot because like whenever you go like to cut, like let's say you want to like go into engineering.
Yeah.
Like you're not using an iPad for engineering.
Absolutely
None of
not.
the software uses that. But if you're, I don't know, like 14 right now and you've never had a keyboard in front of you,
Right.
how would you know how to use it?
Right. I will say, did y'all have keyboards on your iPads when you were seniors?
We kind of rejected it at all costs.
Yeah, so
you're like, I'm not using
yeah, I had this whenever I was a senior.
Okay,
so
yeah.
I didn't really use the
it.
iPad much.
So they do have keyboards,
Mm-hmm.
and they're new iPads. So they got a new batch this year. So they're all brand new iPads, but they actually have a cursor. So they have like a mouse pad.
Okay, got it.
Which they did
Oh,
not have
that
that before.
yeah,
That's a game changer.
yeah, that's nice.
But still, the functionality of like things when you download and it's a
Weird
difference.
iPad things.
Now I love the iPad Pro.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, there are so many more features in the iPad Pro
Yeah.
than the, I guess, iPad
The standard
Air.
iPads, yeah.
Yeah, iPad standard. And so when I got my new phone, it was this deal of like, basically you get an iPad for $10. And I thought it was going to be the Pro because that was the picture on the graphic.
they
And I was
got you.
like, we're
Yes.
getting this. And when they gave me my standard iPad, I was like,
Oh no.
but I do like it. I do enjoy it. It is, it was $10.
Yeah.
I mean, but they're just that the iPad Pro seems more durable, more efficient. My husband's uncle, he actually, the company doesn't exist anymore, but there was a case that has the keyboard in it, and it's made with the same metal and material as the laptop. So it literally just looks like a smaller
Yeah.
laptop, and it has all the same buttons and the same functions. So I was like, man, that would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
But, meh.
This is the best thing ever for photo editing. I don't know if you've ever tried that before, but that's the best thing, I think.
So I don't have, like, my camera isn't great because mine's just a standard
Sure.
camera. And so, like, I've done some, but the pictures that I get, like, super pixelated, super fuzzy, like, the quality's just not there. And so I'm like, I'm just not going to waste my time on editing. But something that, I mean, I could always, what I would like to do, so the platform that we use for yearbook cannot be done on iPads.
Got it.
It has to be done on laptops. But I have had students that have uploaded pictures to their iPads because they can add them to Drive, whatever. So I need to get a couple adapters for SD card readers for iPads, and then I could teach kids how to edit. I don't do a ton of that in yearbook because we
Focused on
use-
that as much. Sure.
I mean, it's more graphic design,
Yeah.
less photo
Yeah.
editing, but something I would like to explore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at least with the iPad Pro, I don't know about the iPads that you guys are using now, but like with the USB-C, you can upload photos like at full res. So, like I only really edit photos off of here. So I take my card out of my camera, plug it in, send them over, whatever I want, edit the ones that I like. And the app that I use is called Photomator.
I was going to ask, and I think I've actually used that before.
Yeah. I think it's like $10 or something like that, but it syncs with your like iCloud photos.
Okay.
And it
Which,
it
when
literally
you said
works.
iCloud, I'm like, no.
Well, I just mean like your Photos app.
Yeah.
So you can do like, instead of where you do edit on your photos, you just do like the little share button and then Photomator, and then it opens right up, and then
cool.
and then it syncs that save to your photos. So it's really well built in, and it's
That
really good.
is-
And I don't use Adobe. Caleb uses Adobe. He uses Lightroom.
That's what I used
yeah.
when I do any type of editing. It may have been y'all's senior year when we took senior photos because COVID
Yeah.
and we couldn't
Yeah.
have a photographer come in, and we edited every single senior photo, and that was
a time.
hours of my life that I will never get back.
True.
But you know what? We did it. It was an experience. I immediately deleted Lightroom after that because I was like, I don't want to do this ever again. I will pay someone to do it.
Did you use Lightroom on a laptop? I'm telling you, you would have saved hours if you used Lightroom on an iPad.
Really?
Yeah, it's super good.
Oh yeah.
It's super easy to save
Yeah.
presets.
That's really nice
Yes,
to know now.
presets.
4 years later.
Yeah.
You can. They even now have it to where you can do like little things like real close up in
which
in
that was the issue.
Lightroom.
Especially people with blonde hair.
Yeah.
They were like their hair was green, and I'm like, I can't do this. I
Right.
need to just.
Yeah.
There were lots of nights where I wanted to throw my laptop, but I had a really great yearbook girl she got into it, and she was like, I can do this, I can do it quickly, and she ran with it after I had many of headaches
Yeah.
and lots of energy drinks, because I was like, my eye was twitching because I was so tired. But I'm not going to say next time, because there's probably not going to be a next time with that, but I'll check out Lightroom on the iPad.
Yeah,
Something
you just
that-
got to give it a chance.
Something that you could think about too is
I'll
like
try.
the way that I have my stuff set is there's like if there's areas in the world where I take like normal photos, I do the same thing with videos. Like they're called LUTs, which is like basically a color grade that I have preset. So I just drag it onto. So if I'm shooting in my bedroom, it's a preset color grade for when my room looks like this. So if you shoot in the gym for pep rallies or at the football field at night, you can have preset color like edits, and you can just drag and drop them and then adjust them from
Yeah.
there.
That's
Color
honestly
grade one
great
time.
for kids, because I don't know how often y'all have shot in like a gym. The lighting,
Super weird.
I mean, it's horrible to try to figure out like the settings and
Yeah.
all of that, like the aperture. It's just hard. And I am not skilled in that. Like, I didn't go to school for photography. Like, I brought in some photographers to talk us through that. But I mean, you have to redo it every single time if you're setting your camera to do that.
Yeah.
But now, if we were to just take the photos and then have the presets,
Yeah, and you might have to
Very
adjust them.
similar.
It just kind of depends. But
Yeah.
if you have a preset that gets you 70% of the way there, that's way better than 0.
exactly,
Yeah.
and cuts off hours
So much time.
of your life. Yeah.
Yeah.
I might recruit some guest speakers for your book to come in and
Yeah,
teach
deal.
us how to do some stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Wonder
Yeah.
who that could be.
I don't know.
Foreshadowing.
Do y'all know anybody? You know?
I think we might know some guys.
Because again, millennial, like y'all are telling me all these things, I'm gonna go home and be like,
Uh-oh.
what did they say?
Right.
What app? How did
Yeah.
they do it again?
Well, that's something that we have to like constantly remind ourselves of, is like I just explained that to you, but there's things that you have no idea about in that. Like, which
there's a
sliders do you
lot
touch?
There's a
Yeah.
lot of terminology that I do know, but that is something that I'm fascinated with. Every field or every discipline can get so detailed that like you had no idea. So like I could start throwing out all kinds of lingo about education that y'all would be like, what are you
Right.
talking about?
Sounds like Spanish.
Right. I was at a dinner with this organization, and there was this man, and he works for Belk, but it wasn't just Belk. He works for like some part of Belk that determines like what clothes and how many clothes and are going to go to what facility and in what state, and then how they're going to be shipped. And I was like, I never thought about that. There's so many little facets, and it truly is fascinating. And I think we get so caught up in our job and our bubble that we forget to appreciate like all the things that go into other professions. You know, like how much time and energy and effort does it take to edit a podcast or edit a video and a recording? Like, there are so many skills that y'all have that I do not have, and I wouldn't even know where to begin. Same for teaching, same for working in a financial aid office. But it's just fascinating what we can learn and consume and then reproduce.
Yeah.
100%. That's the way that I always think about it. Is I always just assume that everybody knows what I know.
Yeah.
I always assume that.
And
yeah.
I mean, that's normal. And as a teacher, like I have to back myself up and be like, hey, did anyone ever teach you that?
I
Or, like,
bet that is so hard. I never even thought about that because
You assume
it's
everybody
spe-
knows what MLA is.
Exactly.
Yes. And they're like, ML who?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
what is that? Or I'll be like, okay, like open up this Google Doc, go to this template, and kids are like, hold on, what did you say open?
Google Doc.
And it's like, and they're like Googling Google
Right.
Doc, and I'm like, you already have it downloaded. But it's just those things. Or like when we did the laptop to iPad transition, my freshmen were like, but my juniors were like,
Uh-oh.
hold on, I don't know. What do you mean I download the app? Well, where do I go to download? What is that thing that you're downloading? Well, it says to reinstall. That means it's already been installed. So you have to rewind, and sometimes there are more steps in a process than you would think.
Yeah.
So what you thought was going to take 5 minutes took 25 minutes because
Yeah.
you can't get a kid logged in. But you just roll with the punches.
That's what it's all about.
Yep.
Yeah.
So just in this moment, what I feel led to say is just like love people. You don't know what someone's night was before. You don't know what someone is walking away from. Give people grace. Give people love. I actually wrote this in a card to somebody recently. Smile because it's free to smile, and joy is contagious. So you never know what could change somebody's day for the good or for the bad. And so you've got to say, how am I going to be an impact? Am I going to be a positive impact to someone, or am I going to be a negative impact to someone? And I always would rather be the positive. So just love people.
Boom.
Yeah. Killed it.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks.
No worries.